and in the air. The Cerrado.
Burning!
Leaking, polluting gas.
Burning!
Amapá.
Burning!
Fossils that should have been left in the ground.
Burning!
Creatures dead for millions of years.
Burning!
The sleeping death that they dug up from the ground.
Burning!
Indigenous territories.
Burning!
Communities.
Burning!
This fossil fuel we have. Choking, toxic coal.
Burning!
Our children's lungs.
Burning!
Our futures.
Burning!
Follow the money and the oil stains and they lead back here. Back in August, the Hunikuin tribe came and peacefully demonstrated with us here and asked BlackRock to change, to stop investments destroying forests and seek to make reparations instead. They didn't listen. In October, the Earthquakes Infinity Group staged a performance out here to warn them, you cannot eat money. They didn't listen. After continued pressure from grassroots groups and campaigning organizations all around the world, it still seems
BlackRock
have no intention of changing their ecocidal business model. Money is the oxygen on which the fire of global warming burns. They persist in fueling this fire against the rights of indigenous peoples and nature, against our climate and our future.
BlackRock
But they seem to have forgotten something very, very simple about fire. Once started, and especially when the flames are fueled and fanned, they have an unpredictable and dangerous tendency to fly on the wind. Fires spread. And to stop that, some people fight fire with fire. Amazonia's indigenous people have been fighting the fire of colonialism valiantly for over 519 years, with the fire of their very lives. And this, just 2 weeks ago, reminds us of that. Paulino Guajajara,
Using this for a
murdered
radio
by
station
indigenous
or?
loggers
Film.
in his reserve.
Real media.
What was
In,
it?
Real media.
in
Do you need
Maranhão.
any music?
I'll probably just use
Over the
December
last few
then.
decades,
I'll probably just use
the
the
fire
December
that
then.
these indigenous people have been
Or
fighting
other
has
bits.
I
spread
write songs, you see.
and finally begun to wake people up around the world, shining a light on their struggle. In the hearts of climate scientists, fear. In the hearts of wildlife protectors, frustration. In the hearts of human rights campaigners, compassion. In the hearts of the youth who see their futures being stolen from them, anger. We are not done. And for us, in the hearts of climate activists, determination.
Burning. Burning.
And just over 1 year ago, a new flame took light. In the heart of London, rebellion.
Burning.
These uncontrollable flames of resistance, they spread throughout the world as fast as the wildfires they seek to end. But our flames have a different fuel, our hope and our rage. And our fire's heat is here to bring sweat to the brows of those who burn forests and fan the flames. If you fuel fire, we are here to make sure you reap what you sow. Ashes, death, and destruction. If you do not change your ways, the result from us is very simple. We will disrupt your business, and we will make sure everybody knows your company's blackened name. By the time we are done, the word BlackRock will be held up as an example, a historical mistake to shun like the plague. It will be the very image of filthy, toxic, and unethical investment, not fit to exist in the 21st century.
BlackRock.
Blacker than the charcoal left behind after the rainforest fires die out.
BlackRock.
Blacker than the thickest oil spilt on Latin America's shores.
BlackRock.
Blacker than the coal dust that chokes your children's throats.
BlackRock.
Blacker than the black hearts of murderers and fascists whose crimes they willingly fund. And soon, you will start to see the flames eroding your business. If you like starting fires and will not stop fueling them, we will bring some of that fire to your doorstep so that you too can feel the heat. BlackRock's corporate social responsibility, employees' loyalty, reputation, shareholders' trust,
Burning. BlackRock.
profits,
Burning. BlackRock.
your future.
Burning. BlackRock.
We have no other choice. If the forests burn out, we must make sure you burn with them. But you still have a choice. There is another way. Meet with us now to discuss our demands while there's still time, while there's still something left to save, and together we can put this fire out. But until the fires in Amazonia stop burning, neither will our fires on your doorstep. So, we have one simple message for you.
Put the fire out! Just put the fire out!
Just put the fire out.
Put the fire out! Just put the fire out! Put the fire out! Just put the fire out! Extinction!
Just put the fire out.
Extinction!
Rebellion.
Extinction!
Rebellion.
And now I hope that we may have the attention of some people inside the building. If we don't, we'll be handing out flyers to tell you how you
like
can
to be
disrupt your
interviewed?
company from the inside. If you are interested, we're welcoming you to come and speak here to us today. To come and speak to some of the indigenous activists whose communities are being destroyed. We want you to come down and speak. We're here to listen, to talk, for now. But this is your last warning. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I'm going to welcome to the stage Matt from Stop Ecocide.
You got a big one there?
Thank you so much, Iggy. Thank you.
He's got a big one there, hasn't he?
I'll see if I can manage the distance. I can kind of hold everyone.
Do you want to be interviewed?
That's great. Iggy, thank you so much for your passion and your commitment.
I've got
And
electric
for sharing
magnetic
this
sensitivity, and
most
holding this
important
is
day.
giving me a... Would you
Hi
like to be
everybody, as Iggy said,
interviewed,
I'm
or
Matt
you're
from
busy
Ecocide Movement,
listening?
and I'm here to talk about
Just for my
hope.
video, this.
And it's not the kind of hope that
Yeah,
we
yeah,
usually
yeah.
have, which is just kind of a rageful, not quite sure what to do, fingers
you'll
crossed,
think that
maybe
to do
things
that.
will change,
What?
fingers crossed, you know.
I've got it.
Hopefully.
Yeah, I'm cold. My hand is
But I'm
freezing.
talking
It
about
feels
real
like
hope,
it's
and this
icy.
is hope in action.
All fingers,
Now,
just the one that
I'll
touches.
come to
The hand, the hand.
more
The thumb and the finger that
for now,
touches is worse. It's
I'm
going
talking
down,
about
so you
the
go
Amazon.
away.
I know you guys know
Raynaud's
about the
disease.
Amazon rainforest.
No, but it's to do with holding the phone. It's not to do, yeah, the batteries in the phone. Yeah,
other leaders
electric magnetic
in the Amazon
sensitivity.
region, and indeed investors like BlackRock Bank
Blocking the
and Barry
message.
think
Blocking the
that
messages.
it
The
is a
battery's too
resource
strong.
for oil for mining minerals,
Probably
for
to do with the
cattle
lithium.
feed, for grazing cattle, for
Yeah.
the disgraceful mass farmed whopper meat industry, for soya, which is a major problem in the whole Amazon region. Soya produced for feed for the meat industry is a massive problem. These people think that they own the Amazon. The indigenous populations of the Amazon don't even believe that they own the Amazon. Like all original peoples, they believe that they are stewards of the land and of this earth. And they have a great responsibility and privilege to be custodians of this land and protect it for future generations. Now, they seek to protect and live in harmony with nature. And this is ancient wisdom and it's obvious wisdom. The Amazon is home to numerous populations of indigenous peoples and their more recently settled Hispanic neighbours living alongside them. The Amazon is indeed a resource, but certainly not in the way that BlackRock thinks, or the way Larry Fink thinks, if he does think, or Bolsonaro, or the corporations that are exploiting it. The Amazon is a resource of ancient indigenous wisdom, of powerful, profound plant medicine, of natural remedies from these plants and microbes, many thousands of which have yet to be discovered, and of course many now lost forever. The Amazon rainforest is also a huge carbon sink. It produces oxygen, but more importantly, it's a massive carbon sink for the planet. It's important for the gaseous balance of the region and the entire planet. The birds, the animals, the reptiles, the fish, the pink dolphins, the birds of paradise, the jaguar, the manatees, orangutan, just to name a few. These too are indigenous populations that are being displaced and destroyed for the profits of transnational corporations and their shareholders, bolstered and held up by Larry Fink and BlackRock Bank. By the way, I've mentioned Larry Fink a couple of times. He's the CEO of BlackRock. Many of you would have heard his name. He's also on the board of Nature Conservancy in the US. So how can that exist at the same time?
You can take as many pictures as you like
It's
of
not
her.
even giving with one hand and taking away with the other. It's giving with one hand and blowtorching with the other. It's ridiculous. It's like getting Jimmy Savile to take your primary school kids out for dinner. It's just absolutely insane. So something needs to change. They need to fire him from Nature Conservancy as a start, and divestment from all fossil fuel projects in the Amazon would be pretty good too. Right, anyway, you know this stuff. You know about the harm that's being perpetrated all over the world by corporations hand in hand with their government and banking friends. There's fracking, coal tar extraction, oil explorations, conventional and unconventional, the pipelines that are laid through sacred lands, deforestation, particularly in Amazonia and Africa, by chainsaw, bulldozer, and deliberate fire. There's overfishing by ridiculous factory ships that suck all the life from the oceans and then belch out the toxic remains in their wakes. Industrial pollution of land, river, sea, soil erosion, and poisoning from agrochemicals. There's a name for all of this harm: ecocide. We call it ecocide. Now, the term ecocide has been around for a long while. From the 70s, in fact, where it was used to describe the nasty environmental legacy of Agent Orange in Vietnam. More recently, the term ecocide has come to wider use through the work of our dear friend, Polly Higgins, who gave up a lucrative courtroom career to defend the natural world. Polly submitted this definition to the United Nations in 2010. Ecocide is the extensive damage to, destruction of, or loss of ecosystems of a given territory to an extent that peaceful enjoyment by the inhabitants of that territory has been or will be severely diminished. Polly died of an aggressive form of cancer on Easter Sunday this year. We continue Polly's legacy at the Stop Ecocide movement. Now, I'm going to talk about the hope in action that I mentioned at the beginning. The International Criminal Court, the ICC, in The Hague, has a governing document. This document is called the Rome Statute. It's a document of international law. It lists 4 recognized international crimes, which you've probably heard of: genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. Originally, the Rome Statute was due to have ecocide as the 5th crime against peace, but it was stopped and blocked by a number of nations, including the UK. Our movement, Our movement is about enshrining ecocide as international law alongside these other laws under the Rome Statute. And here's the really good news, and here's the hope in action. Any member nation of the ICC can motion an amendment to the Rome Statute. We know this is possible because the crime of aggression itself is an amendment. It only needs 2/3 of ICC members to agree for the amendment to be adopted into the statute. Small island states have an incentive to table and vote for ecocide law. Sinking states, as they're known, they are at the forefront of climate emergency events. The votes of these small climate vulnerable nations have just as much weight as the wealthy nations. And for a 2/3 majority, the wealthiest nations are not even needed. The Maldives can scratch out Russia. St. Kitts and Nevis can scratch out the US. We just need 66%. This is really exciting. And before the vote is even taken, the moment of proposal is key because it creates a massive lever to get other states on board. And when this law, it's when the law will appear on the horizon. And when this law appears on the horizon, insurers will start to say, you know what, this is coming, we better be careful what we underwrite. Bankers, BlackRock, if they haven't changed their ways by this time, will begin thinking, this is coming. We had better rethink what we're funding. Government ministers will start refusing permits to pollute, and CEOs will know that if they don't change direction, their own asses will end up on the line sooner or later. This is the way we take the whole world with us on this. Proposing such an amendment makes it visible, makes it inevitable, and just a matter of time. Now, a good question at this point is, what will ecocide law do? Let's look. Now, law is like a pyramid. At the bottom, you have soft law, like the Paris Agreement, agreed upon directives. Well-intended or not, these promises are just promises and are soon broken, just as targets are not achieved. Soft law has no teeth, and it does not protect life. The next part of the pyramid, above soft law, is civil law, which is all about ownership and commerce. Now, this is a little tougher. This is where current legislation and environmental law exists. And people like Client Earth are doing a fantastic job suing companies, but unfortunately, it's after the event. Corporations can be punished with fines and slaps on the wrist. They can be made to pay compensations. And these fines and redemptive measures, unfortunately, are factored into the budgets of large multinational corporations. They have departments dealing with civil law. They have lawyers, teams of lawyers dealing with this in full-time employment. It's business as usual, litigation as usual. Again, it doesn't have any teeth and does not protect life. It's mopping the floor while the tap's running. At the top of the pyramid of law, we have criminal law. Ecocide law is criminal law, meaning that persons of superior responsibility, from government ministers to CEOs of corporations, can be held personally criminally culpable for ecocide, perpetrated by their company or sanctioned by their government. With criminal law, individuals cannot hide behind the corporate entity or government to avoid being held to account. In any nation signatory to the Rome Statute, these individuals may be arrested under international arrest warrants by any other signatory nation. We have the example of General Pinochet being arrested in London by Spanish lawyers for crimes against humanity. This will limit travel and international expansion by multinationals perpetrating ecocide. Individuals may be arrested and brought to The Hague to answer for their crimes. This is a very powerful steer to big business and government to do the right thing. This has teeth. But the real power of ecocide law is that business practices that are ecocidal or may result in ecocide will not get given permits, and they will not be underwritten by insurance companies, and they will not receive investment. All this is because they will be illegal and it will be a crime, and permissions, insurance and investments will be seen as accessories to a crime. It's time to align our law with higher law and the spiritual and natural laws of original peoples. With law that we all know in our hearts is good and works, and it's time to bring back the mantra, first do no harm. It's time for ecocide law, and it's time to remember our sacred place in balance with nature. Now, the American genius Richard Buckminster Fuller was all about thinking outside the box and using his life to make the biggest positive splash possible. He has "Call Me Trim Tab" on his gravestone. A trim tab is part of a rudder. You need a trim tab because the rudder on the ship is far too heavy to move on your own. but you pull the trim tab and the trim tab moves the rudder. We're on a big ship, we're headed somewhere not so good. Let's turn the ship, let's get our hands on that trim tab. Ecocide Law is a trim tab. Go to stopecocide.earth and join us. You can become an Earth protector for just a £5 and 5 minutes of your time. This fiver that you're giving is helping us fund delegations to go to the International Criminal Court and the UN, etc. We are many, and there will be many more. This is part of the solution. For those of you who are activists and are active and may be arrested, you will also find that you can use our Earth Protectors Trust Fund document, which is court admissible worldwide in nearly every jurisdiction. Alongside your defense and your reasons for actions have to be heard and considered in court. You have your say in court. And I promise you, when activists use this in court, everybody is moved. We've had judges in tears. Join us and let everybody know about this. Stopecocide.earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matt. So next up, we have Jimena from SOS Bolivia to come and speak about what's going on over there at the moment. So if you just warm round of applause, please, for Jimena.
Yes, my name is Jimena Vanegas, and I am precisely from Bolivia. Last time that I was here, I was speaking about 2 million hectares of Bolivian Amazon forest burnt. Today, we're speaking of more than 5 million hectares that have been destroyed by the fires. This is a really issue that is very close to my heart, and last time I was here, I cried because of the impotence and because of the pain that not only myself, but like many Bolivians that live abroad were feeling due to the destruction of our home. So I'll try to not do that today. But we were the other Amazon fire, the ones that no one knew about, and the ones we desperately claimed for help. Help that came very slowly, negligently, and that we had to sit and watch burn. The fires in the Bolivian Amazon left us with the worst environmental catastrophe ever seen in Bolivia in its current contemporary history. Since August of this year, the fires in Bolivia have destroyed more than 5 million hectares of Amazon rainforest, of the Great Chiquitano Dried Forest, which holds unique species of flora and fauna, and more than 11 protected areas all over Bolivia. For those who don't know, the Great Chiquitano Dry Forest is a unique ecosystem and one of the largest dry forests in the world. It's invaluable for its ecological, historical, and cultural importance. Inhabitants, more than 18,000 people from different indigenous groups, live in this area. Besides Bolivia having the law of rights of Mother Earth, which promised to expand ecological protection on all fronts, as well as supporting the rights of indigenous people, the different contradictory environmental policies have left the country to these catastrophic fires, destroying our natural heritage and endangering the livelihoods of indigenous communities, including the Chiquitanos, Ayaroade, and Guarani ethnic groups, all for the expansion of the agro-cattle industry in Bolivia. The legal protection of these protected areas have been stripped away, allowing for controlled burns for the expansion of the agricultural sector. A trade deal to supply beef to China was presented to increase land use for livestock by an enormous 7 million hectares. The majority of national protected areas in Bolivia are directly or indirectly threatened by the rapid expansion of commodity frontiers. For months, I swear, for months, we had to convince the international community that this was happening in Bolivia, getting almost no coverage and seeing everything burn down in front of our eyes. We had to beg for coverage and we had to see everything burn. We have seen from afar with impotence the devastation due to the fires in our country. The declaration of a national disaster never arrived. And even though the fires have now stopped, it has left Bolivia facing a disaster of unprecedented magnitude that will take more than 2 centuries for us to recover those ecosystems. Additionally, unprecedented road expansion in Bolivia keeps opening extensive areas of high biodiversity, value to agricultural encroachment, deforestation, and overexploitation. At least 9 protected areas in the Bolivian Amazon are already fragmented by roads. The most infamous case is the controversial road set to cut across the heart of the highly biodiverse Isiboro Segure indigenous territory of National Park Tipnis. Alarming levels of deforestation have already occurred along built sections of the road within that park. That is what we're fighting for here today, so that environmental rhetorics will be translated into actions. We can't continue to push for economic development and investment at the expense of indigenous people and our environment. The protection of the environment is not for debate. It is a must, and that is our commitment to keep fighting for. Additionally, and at last, I wanted to say that the 10th Indigenous March is still in vigil in Bolivia today, after marching for more than 30 days and 480 kilometers against government policies that have burnt their land in the Chiquitania, dry forest, and today, through this action, and with your support, I would like to send them my respects. We stand in solidarity with Brazil, with our Brazilian brothers, and with all the Amazon and the people that lives in the Amazon in South America. Thank you so much for your actions, and we hope that they translate further on into further actions from the UK and from the rest of the world. And Bolivia, thanks you for your support. Thank you very much.
So if we have a spare pair of hands, if we have anyone else who could help us hold the banner, that would be amazing, because these 2 lovely people are probably getting tired arms at this point. So if there's a third person who could help hold the banner, that'd be awesome. Thank you so much. 3 cheers for this lovely lady. Hip hip! Woo! Hip hip! Hip hip! That's what it takes. Okay, awesome. So, arriving quite shortly, we should have, hopefully, Luana Tapajó. In the meantime, there was a lad who wanted to do some spoken word. Where's he gone? Are you up for doing it soon, or you want to come later? Yeah? Okay.
Hi everyone. Yes, perfect. My name's Sonny Jim. I do spoken word around London. I've just recently moved back here, and I was in Swansea setting up the Youth Strike for Climate there, and behind getting my uni to divest from fossil fuels, which is a really important thing that all young people can be pushing for at their institutions, which people don't really know about. I was up at the Edinburgh Fringe this summer busking, raising some money for Amazon Watch, the charity that's dedicated to trying to put these fires out and protect indigenous rights. And I wrote this while I was up there, and I found out about the fires, and I actually had the opportunity to meet and see the 4 indigenous leaders, 4 of the 8 traveling around Europe at the moment, speak at Greenpeace yesterday, and it was amazing seeing people who were standing up for their lives. Like, some of these people had never left their village before, and they were traveling across Europe speaking to governments, trying to save their families and their way of life. Yeah, so no further ado, this is what I wrote when I found out the Amazon was burning. Used to dream of floating like a butterfly and stinging like a bee. But now I'm grown up, rarely any insects left for me to see. In reality, I'm barely floating like an iceberg melting into the sea, trying to stop this planet burning whilst getting stung by my debris. First the Arctic was on fire, now the Amazon's following suit. Deforestation's too slow, so farmers are torching branch to root. Trying to occupy the sacred land so there's more room for cattle to reproduce. Less trees and more cows creates a carbon feedback loop. We see wars fought over oil in the name
We'll go now
of
after
democracy,
this. We'll go now after this.
lining the
Go.
pockets of a few in exchange for the lives of the many. Now the one time we should be fighting, no countries are willing to save all the trees that have given life to the many, stolen by a few greedy thieves. Before the Amazon was burning, trees were still being lost by the day. 3 football pitches a minute is a truly terrifying rate. Hopefully these fires make people wake up, because the planet can't afford for us to wait. The lungs of our mother are dying on this dark Amazon Black Friday. When all the flames are extinguished and the ash that remains leaves a stain, I hope the world remembers what used to stand in this grave, because deforestation will continue, with or without the great blaze, and we're destroying our last hope of salvation, so there's more room for cattle to graze. And as your thumbs scroll past these forest fires and you've double tapped your screens,
Oh.
the heart that you leave behind will soon vanish like the trees. Into the past, those lights may last, but can you really say you've played your part? Because I'm sat here watching Earth lungs on fire, and I can feel it in my heart. I feel it ache. I hear the cries as ancient forests light up the skies. The same fires burning my inside, inspired and tired of watching our planet die. And I can't lie, I'm sat here with tears streaming down my face, disgraced to be a member of this selfish human race that seems so set on erasing everything that's great from the face of our planet. No complaints when we meet our fate. So this time when you scroll past or stroll past and continue with your life, but you feel a fire burning inside your head long into the night, and feel personally responsible for changing our planet's plight, share the story, join the movement, because ordinary people have to fight. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I have I don't like to plug myself, but I've also seen that it's the only real way. I have an Instagram, and it's _SunnyJim, like the sun, because I'm Jim. Yeah. So this was actually written. This was written after I went to Regent's Park one morning, and it's one of my favourite spots. And I think it's just in the West we have a very strange relationship with trees. Like, as I said, I saw these Indigenous leaders speak yesterday, and I woke up this morning to a sound, and I looked out my window, and on the road they were chopping down trees and putting it into a wood chipper outside my window this morning, and I was just like, of course this happens. But anyway, this is called Green Army, and yeah, it's after going to Regent's Park and seeing graffiti on some trees, and it just made me think about our relationship. It was early in the morning, and I was sat in Regent's Park, Inti rising from the east, painting colours on the bark, and the leaves of the trees were all dancing with the breeze as they bask in the sun, casting statues on the grass. Shadows across the plateau provide respite from the sun's glow. Protection from convection sets your heating back to zero, cooling down the ground and the city that surrounds, but respect is still lacking. On tree trunks, someone's been tagging. Now I'm not throwing shade, it just amazes me today. In 2019, people think that that's okay. It's a pretty good reflection of these desperate times, whatever happened to respecting the elders of the tribe. But if trees had free Wi-Fi, we'd spend all of our time outside, and that hard truth really hurts my mind. Already connected to nature by our very design. Without plants, there'd be no mankind. Tell me, what would you do without oxygen? Internet connection ain't as strong as that covalent bond that's essential to life. And we need to survive and takes carbon out the sky at the same time. I think we all forget how vital trees are for our breathing. Abusing a tree should be the only act of treason. Gentle giants don't care if you're young or you're older. Could learn a thing or two, all standing shoulder to shoulder. Because to them it doesn't matter if you're big or you're small, if you're light or you're dark, if you're short or you're tall. Many different shapes, but with one shared goal: to filter the air that we're polluting with coal. And oil and fossil fuels that today we still burn. Obesity epidemic, too much food in reserve, to absorb, still deserve to be praised for their work, because this earth won't preserve if we stay on this curve. And in short, the Green Army are trying their hardest, but CO2 levels are still rising like the sea in the Arctic. This task of oxygen creation should be something that we harness and plant more trees, not turn rainforests to carpets. No one can claim that our species is the smartest when the planet is dying and deforestation's a growing market. Our selfish greed will surely leave the future a carcass. In human history, this hour approaching must be our darkest. Embarrassing how we waste paper in this day and age, with the majority of people still believing news displayed on the front page. Thinking that every important situation in the world is reported truthfully, forgetting that it's called a cover story. See, my mum always told me not to look directly at the sun, or the lies will burn inside like an eyeball shot of rum. Paying for auctioned off opinions to be ingrained into your brain is like paying for the spade before they make you dig your grave. How many trees are chopped down to be lapped up by the masses? People pay real money to update their personal atlas with these maps that are tactless, directions that lead backwards, destinations a combination of information that is factless. Like, good luck, have fun, I've lived a nice life. I don't give a fuck about the next generation's plight or struggle. I won't be there, so it's not in my thoughts. All I care about is Mackies bringing back plastic straws. I don't see floods yet. I can't see fires burning. Is the sea really rising? Who knows, I'm not certain. All I know is that money makes the world keep turning, and tomorrow's problem can be tomorrow's burden, but the real situation is not that luxury. They may paint a great picture, but soon Britain will be under siege. Because it won't be very long till disasters enter our frame. Printed or not, thousands being displaced by the day, who might not look the same, and God's worship may be different. Language changed, and their land is very distant, but their thoughts and their feelings are just as humane. Imagine the pain of losing your home in an instant. Infants and mothers with nowhere to live. You might be okay, but what about your kids? Futures? What futures? Not in this city we're living, where politicians are still paid to deny that humans are the reason. Where year on year, the heating's increasing, the air quality we're breathing is steadily depleting. CEOs are wearing filtration masks to their meetings, and for the rest, daily vaping of the emission in season. Frequent lines drawn every moment. In the sky, pollution's potent. Thousands of empty seats that have just flown across the ocean. Plain trails, interlocking, M25's coughing, smoke rings. I'm getting bored of this game of noughts and crosses. River Thames is so disturbing, flows same colour that was chosen for tobacco pouches to discourage people from smoking. Plastic layer on the surface, peel back the film, the water's dirty, and when the Stormzy comes and mixes, it turns so #murky. I do truly find London amazing, because outside the park's just grey concrete mazes, full of cars polluting, haze ascending. Greenhouse effect, except we've got double glazing. And as the temperature raises inside the M25, while we're subtracting the number of green lungs by our side, added heat equals aircon, and world problems multiply. Wealth divide keeps getting bigger. Planet's health is in decline, and no one seems bothered, and we're running out of time. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. I just want to say as well, like, they've really picked their name well, haven't they? BlackRock. Like, they're just no fucking about there. They know what they want and they're going for it. But it's not going to happen. I've always wanted to do this, so Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Extinction! Rebellion! Thank you very much, everyone. _ Sunny Jim, if anyone wants to follow me, I have more words. If you don't go to spoken word things in London, they're great to go to. It's a really hidden scene. Also, thank you Fox for being awesome as always and organising this. And everyone for turning up. Thank you.
Big round of applause for Sunny Jim.
I suppose we better head off.
Thank you so much. So you guys ready to bring a little bit of energy back into it? Move around, it's getting cold. Who wants to move a bit? Who wants to go for a dance?